Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's kick things off by taking a look at the day's headlines. The reunions for families separated since the outbreak of the Korean War come to a close. It was a tearful end, but there's hope more families will have the chance to meet within the next couple of months. Sticking to its guns, South Korea's presidential office vows to strengthen its policy of income-led growth for the remainder of the year. This despite criticism the policies have yet to pull the economy out of its slump. Plus, joy for both of the Koreas at the Asian Games as the unified women rowing team makes history, winning gold in the 500-metre dragon boat event. We have all the latest from Jakarta and Palembang. From the thrilling first group reunion to the teary send-off, the 3 days they spent together flew past for the families who had been separated by war and division on the Korean peninsula for almost 7 decades. The families wrapped up their reunion at North Korea's Mount Kumgang resort over lunch on Sunday, and now it is back to reality. Our Cha Sang-mi has more on the tearful scenes.
The second round of inter-Korean family reunions began on Friday, with the participants from the south driven by bus to North Korea's Mount Kumgang resort. 81 people from North Korea were selected to meet with their South Korean relatives, numbering 326 people in total. The families met and had dinner for the first time in 68 years, some of whom had never seen each other before.
건강하셔서 괜찮아서 나는 꿈에도 생각 못했어요. 살아 계시는 거는 꿈에도 못했어요.
Cho Jung-gi burst into tears as he talked to his father. The elder Cho's wife was 3 months pregnant with their son when they were split across the border. On day 2, the family spent some quality time together separately in assigned rooms, eating lunch and having candid conversations without supervision or press. The families exchanged presents too.
그 선물 같은 거는 많이 준비하셨어요?
보시다시피 잠바, 그다음 라면류, 그다음에 생활용품 이런 종류로 여러 가지를 좀 준비했어요. 이게 다 5개가 다 생활용품 위주로 같이 선물 이렇게 주는 마음이 좀 더 기쁘네요.
Before going into the private setting, Yoon Chang-sub couldn't hide his delight after seeing his long-lost uncle from the north. The last day came all too quickly. Long-separated families finally reunited, but having to part ways again.
건강하게 오래 살면 다시 만날 날이 또 있지. 제발.
The older sister promises they'll meet again in the future, knowing they probably won't. The participants say the 3 days they spent together, despite being under strict control, were amazing. The families had a session for exchanging letters, where some grandchildren, nephews, and nieces wrote heartfelt letters for their grandparents, aunts, and uncles, and vice versa. The grandchildren had never seen their North Korean grandparents before, but they invited them to their homes in the south. The venue for Sunday's farewell became a sea of tears, but it seemed they were happy deep down. The family said the 3 days flew by and they wanted to stop time so they wouldn't have to say goodbye. Just after lunch, though, the South Korean participants left Mount Kumgang, going home and heading back to their regular lives. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Tens of thousands of families divided by the Korean War have yet to be selected for these reunions, but they might get another chance soon. According to the South Korean Red Cross, both sides have agreed that another round of reunions needs to be held this year. Park Hee-jun with more.
The next round of inter-Korean family reunions could happen sooner than expected. Speaking to the press pool at the reunion center at Mount Kumgang, the president of the South Korean Red Cross, Park Kyung-seo, said Saturday that he and the North's #2 official on reunification, Park Yong-il, agreed on the need to hold another round of reunions within the year. The relatives on both sides are getting older, and around 3,000 or 4,000 of them die each year. In less than 10 years, there could be almost no one left for the reunions, so the South Korean official said he considers this issue a top priority. Although the exact date has not been set, Park says he expects it to happen near the end of October before it gets too cold for the participants, who are almost all very elderly. He also said the reunion will be similar to this most recent session in terms of schedule and size. The two Koreas will decide on the details through working-level talks. The South Korean Red Cross chief also credited North Korea for its role in the latest round. It was the North's cooperation, he said, that allowed for the participants to enter the North without having to get off their buses and for them to have meals with their relatives without supervision. He also called the first set of reunions since the Panmunjom Declaration was signed during this year's Inter-Korean Summit a major success. Park Ki-jun, Arirang News, Sokcho.
Now, in other news, President Moon Jaein is deciding what to do next after President Trump called off a visit to Pyongyang by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The Blue House says President Moon spoke with his top aides on Sunday to establish a comprehensive understanding of the current situation. Attending were the President's Chief of Staff, his National Security Advisor, the Foreign and Unification Ministers, and the Chief of the National Intelligence Service. President Trump abruptly cancelled Pompeo's visit to the North last Friday, saying there's been a lack of progress in the regime's denuclearization and accusing China of not helping with the process. And next month, President Moon himself is due in Pyongyang for a third summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Speaking Sunday with the newly elected leader of the Democratic Party of Korea, Lee Hae-chan, the president confirmed that he wants to bring lawmakers from the ruling party and others with him. He said he's now working on ways to make it happen. President Moon also asked Lee for multi-party support for his administration's drive to denuclearize the Korean peninsula, to which Lee responded by saying he hopes as many lawmakers as possible will be able to go to the north. The ruling party chairman also expressed his hope that President Moon, while in Pyongyang, will actively work to improve relations between North Korea and the US. The Moon administration was dealt a blow by dismal economic numbers for last month. But on Sunday, President Moon's chief of staff said the administration is only going to strengthen its policy of income-led growth for the remainder of 2018. Speaking to reporters, the chief policy advisor to the president, Jang Ha-song, said it's not time to give up on the existing policy, but to expand and accelerate it, adding that the old policy of relying on exports and big conglomerates has failed to boost growth for all Koreans. Jang's informal meetup with reporters was the second of its kind since the president took office last year. The weakest job numbers in 8 years, combined with falling incomes for the lowest earning Koreans, has fueled concerns that the administration raising the minimum wage has done more harm than good. South Korea's finance chief says the government will do its utmost to resolve high unemployment and income distribution in the country. At an economic-related ministers' meeting on Monday, Kim Dong-yeon said job data and economic distribution have worsened in recent months. He vowed the government will implement its policies to support the self-employed and those in the lower income classes without a hitch. At the meeting, the policymakers also discussed measures to create jobs for people in their 50s and 60s and lowering toll fees on private highways. And the government plans to strengthen crackdowns on large corporations, namely the so-called chaebols, over unfair trade practices that hurt smaller businesses. It has drafted a bill proposing a full reform of the country's fair trade law, the first attempt to do so in 38 years. Oh Seong with more.
The government is planning to get tougher on big companies that engage in unfair business practices and tighten the rules on inside deals between their affiliates. The Fair Trade Commission said Sunday that it's drafted a total revision of the Fair Trade Act as part of its efforts to create a virtuous cycle of prosperity for companies big and small. In the proposal, the antitrust watchdog suggests strengthening enforcement and penalties on those who violate the Act. It would do that largely by giving up its exclusive right to file complaints with the prosecution about unfair pricing and collusion, enabling other government agencies to initiate investigations as well. Also, penalties for violating the Fair Trade Act would be doubled. Companies found guilty of collusion would have to pay up to 20% of their sales income, an increase from the current 10%, and those caught engaging in unfair trade would be hit with 4%. In a bid to break up the dominance of large companies, the government plans to tighten the limit on the stake a corporate leader can hold in smaller companies they deal with. They're now limited to 30%, but that would be brought down to 20%. The FTC suggested the 20% cap would be applicable to some 600 companies, more than double the current 231. At the same time, regulations on big companies investing in or forging M&As with smaller firms will be eased to promote synergy and innovation. The government plans to submit the bill to Parliament for approval in November. Usiang, Arirang News.
Korea's southwestern province of Jeollanam-do suffered from flash flooding on Sunday after a bout of torrential rain slammed Suncheon and Gure counties. A stream that burst its banks flooded around 10 homes, forcing 50 residents to spend the night in a nearby school. More than 200 millimeters of rain pounded the region on Sunday. A mudslide was also reported in Gure County, but no one has been reported injured. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has revealed that he will take on the nation's former defense minister in a race for the leadership of Japan's ruling party. This is set to take place in September. Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe confirmed Sunday that he'll seek re-election as leader of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party in September. It sets the stage for a two-way race against Japan's former defense minister Shigeru Ishiba, who announced his intention to run earlier this month. Ishiba has promised to engage in fair and honest politics. As the leader of the ruling party becomes the de facto prime minister of the country, if Abe wins, it will be his third term as the leader of the LDP, and he'll be on track to become Japan's longest-serving prime minister. Abe and Ishiba contested in the previous election in 2012. The main focus of the debate is likely to be the amendment of the Constitution, in particular Article 9, which bans the maintenance of armed forces. Abe has repeatedly highlighted the need to clarify the role of the self-defense forces and hinted he'll submit the amendment bill to the extraordinary Diet session this fall. Yet a survey conducted by Japan's Kyodo News Agency shows only 36.7% of the Japanese people are in favor of the amendment bill proposed by the ruling party, with nearly 50% opposing it. The poll also shows some 36% said they support Abe as the leader of the LDP, while 31% support Ishiba. With the official campaigning scheduled to kick off on September 7th, it remains to be seen whether Abe can secure a third consecutive term as the leader of Japan's ruling party. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, tributes have been flooding in for the late US Senator John McCain, who died over the weekend after losing his battle with a highly aggressive form of brain cancer. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our No Adam. Adam, who have we been hearing from thus far?
Well, former presidents and politicians have been leading the tributes for the longtime Republican former President Barack Obama, who beat McCain to the White House in 2008, issued a statement saying all should aspire to McCain's courage to put the greater good above our own. Obama added that despite their differences, they shared a, quote, fidelity to something higher. George W. Bush described him as a man of deep conviction and a patriot of the highest order. Jimmy Carter said Americans will be ever grateful for the Vietnam veteran's heroic military service and for his steadfast integrity as a member of the U.S. Senate. Fellow politicians and current President Donald Trump also expressed their condolences via social media. Now, McCain was one of Trump's harshest critics throughout his campaign and his presidency. Tributes also came in from world leaders, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel, British Prime Minister Theresa May, and French President Emmanuel Macron. Barack Obama and George W. Bush are expected to give eulogies at a funeral at Washington National Cathedral. McCain's family is reported to have said they do not want President Trump to attend. Vice President Mike Pence is expected to represent the White House instead. Police in the U.S. state of Florida say 2 people have been shot dead following a mass shooting at a video game tournament in Jacksonville. The suspect has been identified as 24-year-old David Katz and is reported to have shot himself dead at the scene. 11 people are said to have been injured. Authorities say they believe the gunman acted alone and are investigating the exact motive for the incident. Pope Francis has issued a sweeping apology over the Catholic Church's mishandling of clerical child sex abuse. He begged for forgiveness as he ended his 2-day visit to Ireland on Sunday.
We ask for forgiveness for the abuse in Ireland, the abuse of power, of conscience, and the sexual abuses by church officials in position of responsibility in the church. We ask for forgiveness for all those times in which the church has not demonstrated compassion towards the survivors of all types of abuse and towards those looking for justice and truth and concrete action.
Although his apology was well received by the congregation gathered at Phoenix Park, there were a few protests by groups representing the abuse survivors. A former top-ranking Vatican official also called on Pope Francis to resign after releasing an 11-page letter claiming the pontiff knew about the abuses of the disgraced former Archbishop of Washington, Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, years before they became public. Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano said the Pope, along with all the Vatican's top brass, should step down for their failure to act on the abuses.
So let's give you the latest from Jakarta and Palembang, the host cities for the 2018 Asian Games. And history was made on Sunday as a unified Korean team, athletes from the North and South working together, grabbed gold in their event. As for South Korea, the country remains in 3rd in the medal standings, quite a way behind China and Japan. Our Won Jung-hwan with the details.
The unified Korean canoeing team continued its historic run at the Asian Games on Sunday, winning gold in the women's 500-meter dragon boat racing event. The 16-member team clocked a time of 2 minutes 24 seconds, beating China by 1/3 of a second. It was the second medal won by a joint Korean team at an international multi-sport competition, following the bronze medal the women's team won in the 200-meter dragon boat event the day before. Arirang, Korea's most popular folk song, played as the unification flag was raised high during the medal ceremony. The medal won't count to either South or North Korea in the Asian Games medal standings. Instead, it was awarded to Korea. Previously, unified Korean teams won gold medals in the women's team event at the 1991 World Table Tennis Championships and in mixed doubles at the 2018 International Table Tennis Korea Open. But Sunday's victory marks the first time the joined forces to win gold at a multi-sport competition. Another gold medal for South Korea came from the track on Sunday, as Jung Hae-rim won the women's 100-meter hurdles. Jung finished first in a time of 13.2 seconds, 0.13 seconds ahead of the runner-up. While Jung's medal is the country's first athlete's gold in Jakarta, it holds extra meaning as Team Korea failed to win any gold medals in track and field events at the 2014 Asian Games at Incheon. South Korea's other gold of the day came in sports climbing. Chun Jong-won won gold in the men's combined sport climbing event. However, a disappointing loss for South Korea in baseball. The 2-time defending champions started their campaign with a 2-1 loss to Chinese Taipei on Sunday. The national baseball team had only 6 hits against 3 amateur pitchers from the Taiwanese Industrial League. South Korea's next game is against the host nation, Indonesia. The action gets underway on Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. Korea time. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Let's stick with some sports news now. In Major League Baseball, South Korean pitcher Ryu Hyunjin was affected both on the mound and at the plate, helping the LA Dodgers rally to beat the San Diego Padres 7-3. It was the bottom of the fifth inning and Ryu was at bat with 2 outs. He got his second single of the game and the Dodgers took it from there. Pitching, meanwhile, Ryu gave up 11 hits in 5 innings, but he limited the damage to 2 runs and he struck out 8 Padre players. Ryu has made 2 starts since returning from a groin injury. Now, gases from landfill sites are a major source of air pollution. Korean researchers have developed a technology for converting such greenhouse gases into green energy to hopefully help and try and tackle climate change. Our Park Se-young with more.
Landfills produce methane and carbon dioxide, which are both greenhouse gases. Some large landfills build electricity production facilities and utilize these waste gases, but around 75% of landfills nationwide are small or medium-sized. Now, Korean researchers have developed a way to convert the emissions from these landfills into synthetic gas, then into methanol and green gas using plasma technology.
By using thermal energy derived from plasma for catalysts, we are studying whether we can reduce the cost of the process.
The researchers have secured the technology for controlling plasma and boosted thermal efficiency by about 30% to 76%. By doing so, they were able to convert up to 99% of methane and carbon dioxide into green gas. Using a vortex to spin the plasma also maximizes the efficiency of the process and cuts costs to 1/10 what they were previously. The researchers plan to raise the technology's business value through the operation of demonstration plants and are looking to enter overseas markets. The study was published in the journal Plasma Processes and Polymers. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Good morning. The rain that started on Sunday will linger in most parts today. And the central and southern parts of the country, including Daegu and Daejeon, are seeing heavier rainfall with heavy rain warning being in place. And the surrounding regions of those 2 major cities are also under heavy rain alerts with on and off heavy showers expected until Tuesday. So expect to see up to 200 millimeters of precipitation, while the upper regions will see rain going away in the afternoon for the day, but will return tomorrow. And the daily highs in Seoul will be similar to yesterday, topping out at 29 degrees Celsius. Daegu will notice a lot warmer conditions at 29 degrees today. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. So South Korea will have a showery week, while most parts of North Korea will be under mostly sunny skies today. The heat wave in Japan does not seem to have come to an end just yet. Expect to see highs at 36 degrees Celsius with evening showers. In Australia, Sydney and Wellington will see strong winds blowing 10 to 12 meters per second. Over in the U.S., a pattern change is allowing hot and humid weather to return to the Midwest and Northeast. As for South America, Rio de Janeiro will also see Sunday's rainfall lingering into Monday. Those in the UK have sunny spells in the forecast after a wet bank holiday weekend. Lastly, to Africa, heavy rainfall across the Western Cape on Saturday was very welcome for the drought and the dams as spring nears. And that's the weather update for now.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it for now at this time on a Monday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV, and we'll have our next newscast. That's coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.